So thank you for joining us. This is Stop Now, where we stop, listen, and share. And today we have Robert Panico. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, that's very right. Panico.
Robert Panico is a transgender and neurodivergent facilitator and speaker and EDI advocate. And he will be joining us today to talk a little bit about cultural awareness, breaking social barriers, and about his journey. So, Robert, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
You're very welcome. Thanks. I'm fine. I'm very fine. It's 8 p.m. here in London. Warm weather. It's very fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. And we also have in the background JK, the voice of the voiceless. He's going to just hang out.
Hi, JK.
Hi, Robert. Thank you for joining. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You are welcome.
Great. So why don't we start out with the basics? You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my journey starts become very a long journey in the past, since I was a child. So I'm a neurodivergent individual, but I only got my neurodivergence on about a month ago, while I start transitioning from female to male when I was 21. I couldn't start my transition, my gender journey in Italy, where I come from, because of stigma, because of bureaucracy, because of the waiting list. So here in London, there's a large waiting list for transgender people to have access to healthcare, so to have access to hormone therapy, while in Italy is also longer. So I decided to leave my country and to start in Switzerland.
And could you tell us a little bit more about what a neurodivergent facilitator does, for those that don't know?
Yes, so I'm a facilitator. It's different from being a trainer. So usually a trainer is someone that has learned some knowledge, awareness, education, and is bringing to teach. While a facilitator is someone that has lived experience, so will bring awareness and can connect also information to lived experience. This is to facilitate the learning, as the words say, to bring not only knowledge, but to bring to let people feel. We are all different learners. Therefore, we tend to learn in different way. When we have a facilitator, we have more opportunity to feel an information rather than just listening to an information. For example, I can speak about the challenge of someone experiencing gender diversity. I can bring awareness and I can bring a piece of story, my life story, so to allow people to have a wider understanding.
And you mentioned that in your home country that you felt that there were some barriers and that there were some, I guess you could say, stigmas. Could you talk a little more about that? And your current home is in London, England, right?
At the moment, I live in London since 4 years. I came in London to get back to education after almost 10, 12 years I was out of education. But I felt a need to find evidence of the oppression, of discrimination, of social barrier that I was experiencing, that I have experienced all my life. For example, I come from Italy. So when I was a child, I was hospitalized. I was in hospital for stomachache a few times. And every time after a week, I was discharged and say, doctors were saying to my parents that I it was psychological, without any further investigation. So my oppression starts since I was a child. My feeling, my pain was neglected. Then I start to have the first trouble, challenging behavior when I was at school. Teachers were calling back to my parents because of my behavior. At 16, because of my behaviors and because of challenging situation in my family, I was even getting more trouble, and I was placed in care. In care, I was also arrested and placed in a youth center for a few days. And the reason was always the same, was challenging behavior. At the time, of course, I don't remember what people, I come from a very small town, so people know each other. I can't tell you what people were saying, but today my father tell me that at the time, people were just approaching my father and say, don't think about him anymore because he's a lost cause. He's not, he's someone, but don't think to him as your son. Think about him as someone that is just taken a direction, a wrong direction. So the stigma of mental health from my country in Italy can be very damaging because young people, anyone that behave in a different way, that try to express themselves in a different way is oppressed. And but this happens also here in many other Western cities, Western countries. And therefore our challenging behavior come out in some way and we start feeling oppression. So the stigma that I experience in Italy, it's the same stigma that I experience in Australia, in Switzerland, and here in London. Although we can consider this country pretty different. Italy is very traditional, conservative. They have, we have the Vatican. We are very Catholic. People are very traditional. Australia, London, they are progressive countries where that's lots of diversity. We can, when a tourist thinks about Australia or thinks about London, they just see the beauty of diversity and the positive. They don't see what's behind. And I can say that my experience in these Western countries has been the same. Sorry, for example, in London, I've been changing, I've been back to education, and I start a new career, professional career. I start working on social field, which is my passion. But the same that was happening when I was working as a chef, now was happening this time. I was challenged. My way of learning is different. My way of progressing is different. And when you start, you can't be yourself. Your authenticity start to be a problem. So you start adding something in your life to try to be better. But while you try to be better, you lose yourself. And there you start having the symptoms. The symptom, I like to say that neurodiversity is not a diversity because it's part of human being. We are all diverse. We all have a way of thinking, a brain, a unique brain. However, neurodiversity can become a pathology and become a pathology because the way how we are oppressed. Today, I can see how my communication skills change or how they were changing when I was forcing myself to stay in the same workplace because for about 16 years, I've been changing countries, relationships, and workplace, because I was unaware. I was just feeling an intuition that I had to leave. I didn't know that I was looking for equality, diversity, inclusion in every place where I was going, a place to belong to, and I couldn't find. So unconsciously, I was leaving. And this has happened until when I start to become aware, to gain self-awareness. So that's why I decided to stop looking for a place, but to create a place where I can help others to find their way.
So where do you feel that, you mentioned feeling oppressed from a young age, going back to school, and where do you think that this oppression originates from? What do you think is the cause of this? And yeah,
I've been thinking a lot. I've been thinking a lot on why this oppression, why we try to oppress other people, other tradition, everything, and it's the main reason that came to my mind when I think to my past, when I started identifying myself to understand better myself, is about cultural arrogance, cultural dominance. I've been a cultural arrogance as well, because I wasn't aware of my neurodiversity. When I was in care home, I've been living for 4 years with people that knew about my neurodiversity, because I had my first assessment, but they had the diagnosis from me because of cultural stigma. If you have a mental health diagnosis, so you will think that you are ill. So society will treat you as a ill person. There is not the thinking of, let's change society, let's change workplace, let's listen, let's hear other experience, other voice, and understand what we can do, rather than making a project and just achieve the project that come from us. So the experience in the workplace, it's just it's all the same in every country where I've been.
and what do you feel might be a solution to this? How do you think that this can be changed over time, or do you believe that it can be?
That's a long way before a change. So I think that change is coming. Change is coming in a country like the UK, in London. London is a very progressive institution and corporation and non-governmental organization. They can bring a lot. They can do a lot even in a challenging time. So, for example, now in the UK is really a challenging time for the trans community. However, diversity inclusion, the quality diversity inclusion team can bring a change by collaborating with institution, organization, and start to make a change internal. So having facilitator, having people who bring more visibility, who bring more awareness, it's a gateway for people to start to understand why they need to let diversity inclusion teams inside their organization. Because the first work, I would say the main work of EDI teams is to influence people who have a culture, who probably create something, create an organization by following a culture. So that's the most challenging. How do you bring awareness to someone that should unlearn first. It's unlearning the most challenging side. So what can be done is about diversity inclusion. It's about just allowing people to be vulnerable. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable, try to just to step back and to let others bring in the experience. And only when you see results, you can change a culture, you can bring diversity, you can bring inclusion when you start to be open. And you can be open when you start seeing results. To see results, we need to work. We need to bring our contribution, to have strategy, and then compare results.
So, could you tell us a little more about the work that you do and the talks that you give and sort of what sort of maybe organizations that you might be involved with?
Yes, sure. So I've been, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been into the social field. So my call come from my life experience, from my neurodiversity, from me being a transgender individual. So I would say that sorry, that when I went back to education, as I told you at the beginning, it was to find evidence on everything that I was feeling. And I start working with vulnerable people like I was with young people in a care home. When I start working with them, I see that there was too many legislation that didn't allow me to be an educator, to be a supporter. And I want to understand more, so I went back to education to understand more what were the legislation, who was like writing this legislation, why these people, young people, couldn't take the support that they needed. And from there, I went to youth justice service. I started working in a youth justice service, and I could see the same people coming over and over. And these people were from minority groups coming to my service and see me like as a duty. I couldn't help them because they were coming for 30 minutes and they didn't want to listen to a stranger. So my effort was it wasn't valid. And from there, I started researching discrimination and racism in the UK and see the impact and try to find data, to find the evidence of, for example, the minority groups, minority individual in prison, so a prison population. And from there, I went working in different areas. So London is always in care homes and homeless service to find always the same issue that was about inclusion, diversity and inclusion. And I could link my experience to all of these people's experience. And in my last job, which was with human trafficking and modern slavery, I was feeling worthless because I couldn't really support survival. I could see survival or that they were just numbers in my caseload, and more people I was able to keep in my caseload, more I could progress. And when I start seeing this issue around me, that who was progressing was who were able to keep numbers, I start to step back. I start to understand that wasn't my place. I couldn't bring. I went close to EDI. I've been burning out for a few times, and then I discovered the equality, diversity, inclusion world. I start working on the side as a just was taking extra task, trans inclusion. We were working on trans inclusion policy, and we start working on project for the LGBTQ plus network. I was co-chairing the network and just try to enhance, to promote inclusion within the service. About 2 months ago, I left my full-time job to start facilitating, speaking. So before leaving, I start bringing some awareness to team member, to my colleague in team meeting and lunch and learn. And I start understanding that my experience could be much more worthy if I could take that out, so I can full contribute with my full self, with my authentic self, rather than learning. And also because learning a job and having a structure in a full-time job was very damaging for me as an autistic person.
You mentioned. Sorry, please finish.
So here, what's my focus? The focus that I had all my life, it's now on the table for any place, any organization, any individual where can bring an impact, positive impact. So I'm available for organization and people to facilitate session gender diversity. So LGBTQ plus inclusion, focus on trans inclusion, unconscious bias. I'm very focused on unconscious bias and microaggression. That's because my life has been an unconscious bias, and I could identify all the issue, all the challenge that I face coming not from hate, but literally from unconscious bias. I try to talk about inclusion, for example, with people back in Italy, and it's almost impossible for me to talk about who I am, to talk about what I do, to talk about diversity inclusion with many people from Italy because of the cultural stigma, because of a lack of cultural awareness.
Now, you mentioned human trafficking there. Could you talk a little bit more about your involvement? As you may know, Stop Now is an organization dedicated to stopping human trafficking and labor trafficking.
Yes, this was one of the most rewarding jobs. As I say, I've been working with young people. I've been working with homeless service and human trafficking, working with survival of modern slavery and survival of human trafficking was rewarding. Was I didn't expect to find such kind people, educated people, open people. They were so close to my story in many different ways, but I could feel how their oppression opened a world to them. The same world was oppressing them because the consciousness that these people had didn't, like, for example, almost none of them was aggressive. Like, you experience a lot. I was an advocate, so I was on the front line, supporting about 15 people on my caseload, or seeing them once a month and having call once a week or 2 weeks, having their caseload up to date. I never found, it was rare to find someone aggressive, for example. And now, things about us in our Western world and all the privilege that we have. And still, we have emotion, sometimes upsetting emotion. We argue with people. We not patience. People argue with people on the streets because of traffic, because in the shop, for many, many different things. And then I met all these humble people, many, many humble people that came from devastation, from war, from torture. And I just had pleasure to be with them. I literally had the pleasure to be with them. At the same time, it was what they were hard feeling, because I was looking around me and I could see the future of these people. I could see that, okay, again, I had the same questions when I was working with young people and questioning legislation, when I was working in a youth center and questioning the youth justice system. Now I was just questioning society and culture, because my question was, I'm empowering these people. I'm spending time, and I can see in their eyes how they want to be empowered, how they are ready to do everything to be successful, to get back their independence, to get back their value, and then at the same time I was questioning myself and say, what about all the barriers that they will find? What's about all the people working with me and being cultural arrogant? And maybe some of them, they will look at their file and see disorder and treat them as a clinical patient. When you step back from your cultural arrogance, you start seeing people and you stop treating people. You start seeing people and you start to think, okay, this is their file, and their file may be full of bias from other professionals, because we are all full of bias. So rather than look at the files with a focus, I will look at my clients and see who he is and how I can empower him. I've been empowering, for example, a survivor that is from the LGBTQ plus community. It's a small things, but this is how we empower people. Things the survivor, they come from a difficult situation. They are already disempowered. They don't even think they have any rights. So now things, if they can imagine that they have a right to choose a cloth, to choose a feminine or both gender or any gender cloth when they ask for donation. I remember I asked this person if they want a donation, if they want a feminine cloth or if they want a male cloth, and they were surprised. It was just, can I have any gender cloth? Oh, of course. Can you? Of course. You are exploring your gender identity. This was a previous discussion between us. You are discovering your gender identity, and you have rights. You have rights, not only in regards to your modern slavery experience, but as human. So here, my cultural competency, I can say, was allowed me to create a connection and to empower the individual, not only for their identity of survival, but for all their identity. Because we don't have one identity, we have lots of identity. And when even one of them is disempowered, everything's fall apart. So we can't pretend to help survival of modern slavery, human trafficking, if we don't have enough awareness to empower all their identity, then work all together. When I start to see all of this, that's why I came to EDI. I discovered the EDI word and I say, okay, let's empower people for real.
Great, and thank you so much for sharing all that. And we just have another couple of minutes here. Maybe let's wrap up by if you could let our viewers know how they can get involved in what you do, or what they could do on a personal level to contribute to your cause.
To commit them. Everyone should commit to bring a change. If we start thinking that all of us as a conscious bias, all of us make mistake, we are a human being, and if we start committing to unlearn and learn, to make mistake, to ask. One of the questions, for example, that I received from someone was in a session was because a suggestion that I give on the LGBTQ plus inclusion session is to ask for pronouns. People wonder, how do I find out pronouns, the correct pronouns to use? Just ask. And a question that I received was about what if the person in front of me gets upset? People don't get upset when we ask. People might get upset when we assume. And trust me, in today's society, we assume a lot of things. We assume on genders, we assume on sexuality, disability, we comment all the time on other people. And so we are always assuming. When someone have a question about their identity, might think that might be surprised and think that, it's the first time that someone is asking rather than assuming. So my suggestion to people is to commit themselves, not to think that I'm not part. We are all in this world, and we are all part of what happened around us. On the negative side and the positive side, on every side. And we can make a change. I literally believe that a single individual can bring much more change than what they can bring sometimes international organization or institution where surround our institution from where we come from.
Absolutely, yeah, we totally agree. At Stop Now, we advocate human rights. So we support your cause completely, and we thank you very much for sharing your story with us and for doing the work that you do.
You're very welcome, Nate.
So thanks for talking with us, and best of luck to you with what you do, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
All right.